welcome, good evening, and this is the Growing Diversity Project's third webinar, Biosecurity Certification and Assurance Schemes for CTNs. I'm Hilary and I'm the Growing Diversity Project Coordinator. So for those of you who don't know, this project is a partnership between the Woodland Trust and Fellowship of the Trees, and it's supported by the Forestry Commission's Tree Production Innovation Fund. So this evening we have 3 guest speakers. I'll introduce our first speaker, Amanda, shortly. There will be a Q&A session after the speakers have finished. We ask that you remain muted throughout until the end, and then feel free to ask a question when we invite you to. And do keep an eye on the chat for useful links that are connected to the biosecurity schemes and also our events programme that we've got planned for the coming year. And do feel free to use the chat if you've got any queries, please. So now I'll just go on and introduce our first speaker, Amanda Calvert, who is an auditor for both the Grown in Britain and Plant Healthy certification schemes, and also the Woodland Trust UK and Ireland Sourced and Grown Assurance Scheme. And she provides training on different aspects of biosecurity. So I'm going to welcome you now, Amanda, and hand over to you to begin your presentation.
Okay, thanks, Hilary.
Thank you.
I'm just going to share my screen. Okay, well, thanks for coming along, everybody. I am going to give you a brief whistle-stop tour of 2 schemes that are currently in place that look at biosecurity in tree nurseries, just so that we can keep landscapes such as the one we've got in this picture here as beautiful today and tomorrow into the future as they've always been. I'm going to cover the differences between certification and assurance, what we mean by biosecurity, and then look at UK ISG, which Hilary already explained is the UK and Ireland, UK and Ireland Sourced and Grown scheme that is run by the Woodland Trust and Plant Healthy. So, what do we mean by certification and assurance? So there's a subtle difference. Certification is basically an audit of whether an organisation or a product or an individual conforms to the criteria that's laid out, set out in a recognised standard or scheme. And that is what Plant Healthy is. Assurance is an assertion that that provides confidence. So the Woodland Trust UK ISG is an assurance scheme. Plant Healthy is a certification scheme. And then briefly, biosecurity, although I'm sure you understand what this is. Biosecurity measures are measures that are taken which aim to prevent the introduction or spread of a harmful pest or disease, whether it be intentionally or unintentionally. You can see on the graph on the right-hand side that since the 70s, we've had a real increase in the number of pests and diseases that have had absolutely devastating effects on our woodlands, in particular things like ash dieback, Phytophthora, the spruce bark beetle that we're beginning to see all over the place now. So there's been a significant increase in pests and diseases across the UK since the 70s. Well, so when we talk about pests and diseases that have this severe impact, we're looking at mainly notifiable pests. Those are quarantine or regulated non-quarantine pests. These are the pests that we didn't have here that can actually have a serious implication for our trees in our landscape. So they can have an economic effect as well, but mainly they have a devastating environmental impact. So ash dieback, for example, with all the ash trees that we're losing, not only are we losing an iconic species in our landscape, we're also losing the 52, I think it is, endemic species that are associated with that tree. So it's got very far-reaching effects. So quarantine and notifiable pests can have a severe and really deep impact on our landscapes. So I'm going to talk about UKISG and plant health in a little bit more detail. So UKISG is a voluntary initiative for forest nurseries that identifies the provenance of stock to buyers. So it's looking at where they're actually sourced and grown. So it assures that the buyer that the trees have been raised from seed, that's sourced and grown solely within the UK and Ireland for its entire lifespan. And it's the benchmark for tree procurement at the Woodland Trust. So even though it's a provenance scheme, it's also got that biosecurity element to it as well. And we're going to go into that in a little bit more in a minute. Plant Healthy is a management standard which sets out requirements to be met by the scheme registrant, and it was developed by specialists from the industry, government and the third sector. That group is called the Plant Health Alliance. Their purpose is to promote and enhance plant health and biosecurity measures to associate, sorry, excuse me, I clicked too soon then. To protect the associated ecosystems in the United Kingdom and beyond. So the two logos at the bottom are Plant Healthy and Grown in Britain. So Plant Healthy is the Plant Health Alliance, the Plant Health Scheme, and it is independently verified that a business or organisation is operating responsibly in terms of their plant health management systems. Grown in Britain is the certification body that carries out the audits against the plant health standard. So the plant health standard sits on its own, and then it's audited by an independent organisation, independent auditors that audit against those set criteria within that standard. The Plant Health Alliance itself is got a vast number of organisations, NGOs, governmental, National Trust, Woodland Trust, Cornwall. So you can see by the number of logos on this page that it's taken biosecurity has been taken very seriously, and it's all encompassing. So there are so many organisations that are taking this on board. So what does it cover? Just going to move this out of the way. So the most common pathway for notifiable pests to be introduced into the area is by the movement of live plants. That's a commonly known thing, that if you move plants, it can bring in a pest and disease. But also, you've got to look at not just the movement of the actual plant, you've got to look at the propagation material, the movement of that propagation material. That might be a plant, it might be a cutting, it might be a seed, it might be a plug, it might be a container plant. You've got to look at the propagation facility, how it's grown, how it's traded. Does it go in a lorry? Does it go by internet? Does somebody come and collect it? Right the way through to the plants that are planted in the landscape. So biosecurity measures should be examined at every stage of this. So that includes growers, it includes horticulturalists, it includes traders, retailers, arboriculturalists, landscapers, all the way through to public gardens. But however much we try and look after the plants and trees in our own landscape and try to source locally, in reality, over 80% of our current plants, by volume and value, come from international sources. So this is the thing we need to work towards. We need to try harder. We need to make sure that we are producing more of our own plants and trees in the UK and encouraging people to buy those from us in the UK. So UKISG, what does it cover? The scope. So we're going to look at the scope of the two schemes. So UKISG covers seed, so forestry reproductive material, the source, the receipt of it, treatment, sowing, everything to do with seed. It covers the production of the plants, records that are kept, monitoring, grading, compliance with regulations such as plant passporting, plant health, plant passports, biosecurity, signage, boot washing, other stock, what's on the nursery. Soil, our records kept. Peat, is everybody using peat? Is there a peat reductions policy statement in place? Water, where did the water come from? Is it through from a borehole? Is it from a river, standing water? Are abstraction licenses in place, etc.? And pests and disease, knowledge of relevant pests and disease that may have an impact on the nursery. So you can see UKISG, even though it's a provenance scheme, it encompasses far more than just a provenance scheme. It's got a huge element of it is related to biosecurity, as well as the traceability of that plant material right back to the source to illustrate that it is UK sourced and grown, and island sourced and grown. Plant Healthy has similar elements to it, but goes into much more depth for each. So it's broken down slightly differently. It's broken down into plant health regulations, the legal requirements to which a nursery has to adhere, they're required to adhere to. So that may be plant passporting, it may be phytosanitary regulations if they do import, it's FRM, etc., and compliance with statutory plant health notices, all of those things that are legally required. It requires a plant biosecurity policy to be in place to illustrate that everybody from the top down, from the directors of the nursery, the lead people in that organisation, take on board biosecurity as a key part of the business. Just in the same way as you have a health and safety policy, this is a health and safety policy for your plant biosecurity. So that has to be in place. Plant health responsibility, it looks at how plant health responsibility is delegated within the nursery structure. Now, in small nurseries, that might just be one person, so they'd have to delegate everything to themselves. But in a larger nursery, it's how it works. So how does it work if you've got staff, paid staff, but then you have volunteers? How is the responsibility for plant health delegated, and how is it managed within the organisation or the business? Then it looks at a site and operations pest risk analysis, and we're going to look at that in a little bit more detail shortly, because I think risk analysis is the key to everything, regardless of whether it's UKISG or Plant Healthy. It's all about managing risk, and we're going to look at that in a little bit more depth in a minute. It includes supply chain management. Where do you get the compost from if you buy it? Where do you get your pots and trays? Where do you get any toppers or any canes or anything you use on the nursery? Where do you get them? Are you sure that the people that are providing them to you are biosecure in their own practices? Are the pallets ISPM that they come under, are they heat treated? Are the canes, if they come in, have they been fumigated? Are any trees that you purchased, are the trees that where they come from, is the nursery a biosecure nursery, etc., etc. Hygiene and housekeeping, how do you manage your tools, how do you manage your cleanliness in the nursery? Plant health controls such as weed management, etc., and water management, all the way down to looking at the wider environment. What's in the wider environment? Will it have an impact on your nursery? And then it's monitoring and continual improvement and training and recognition. What experience do the people that work in the nursery have, and how are you recording that? So it's similar, but goes into a lot more depth with respect to the biosecurity element of it. And the traceability is traceability to even where the tree's imported from. So there's still that traceability element, but there isn't the provenance element that UKISG has. So I mentioned the site and pest risk analysis. This is all about looking at the risk of your, excuse me, I'm just going to move this bar to the top so I can see a bit better. It's the risks that your site has with respect to pest and disease. So what plants, this is a sort of step-by-step risk analysis of a nursery. And most people will be doing this all the time. They just won't be thinking that they're doing it. They'll just take it for granted. They'll take each step for granted, and they will be doing it, but not maybe in a logical order, and not maybe in as much depth as they could be. So what plants do you grow? What hosts are there for particular pests and diseases on your nursery? What pests could have an implication, or what diseases could have an implication for those plants that you go on the nursery? And you can check these out by going on to the Plant Health Risk Register, and we'll put some links or send them across later so you can look up where you can find out about these different things. So you've got your site, so you've mapped out your site, you've got your host plants, you've identified what pests are associated with it. Then how do those pests get there? So the information you can get from the risk register and from sites such as Forest Research will tell you whether the pests or diseases that are associated with your plants have an impact on the type of plants you produce. So if you produce whips, if you produce plugs, if you have cuttings, they will tell you all of this information is out there that will tell you whether they will have an implication for your pests and for your plants. Then you can work out what sort of level of risk there is to the nursery, and that's without doing anything. Then that's your unmitigated risk. Then you have to work out what controls you could put in place to reduce the risk of those pests and diseases from coming onto your nursery. At that point, you've managed the risk and you've provided yourself with an appropriate level of protection for your site. It's an appropriate level because it's your best bet. You're never going to be able to be perfect, but you've got to try as much as you can to reduce the risk as much as possible. And then you check that it's working by monitoring, and then that goes back round in a circle again. So you're self-assessing and you're reviewing and you're continually improving and updating your risk assessments all the time. And as I say, everybody does this in their heads without realising it, and they do it without writing it down. But UKISG and Plant Healthy require you at different levels to map what you're doing and record what you're doing. That way it makes you think a little bit more about those risks as well, and helps you to prevent any ingress into your nursery. So what are the costs and benefits of the two schemes? So UKISG is required if you want to sell trees to the Woodland Trust. You cannot sell trees to the Woodland Trust until you've been assessed by UKISG auditor and have passed the audit. Plant Healthy is required only at the moment. It's only required if it's sold into England and the customer has a grant. So you only have to have it if you want to sell to particular forestry companies or people that have a grant to plant trees, and it's required for part of that grant scheme. It's not absolutely required for anything else. However, there are way over 50 nurseries already that are Plant Healthy certified, because the supply chain is now asking for it, and some councils are also asking for it. So it's become increasingly required. So there's two different requirements there. UKISG, if you want to sell it to the Woodland Trust. Plant Healthy, voluntary again, but required by some government schemes and some councils as well, and other nurseries, etc. require it at the moment. In terms of costs, UKISG is free. Plant Healthy, there are fees and it can be expensive. So ways of reducing the cost are to become part of a group scheme, and we have speakers that are coming along who are part of the first group scheme in the UK that can tell you all about that in a minute. So it's all about taking a proactive approach. So I'm just going to give you a little bit of a visual to make it a little bit easier to understand in terms of risk assessment. So this is a huge nursery. I haven't got an overhead picture of a community nursery yet, but I'm looking for one. So if anybody's got one, send one across and we can map the pathways on that. So what we're looking at is pathways. So what are the pathways? So you've got water movement, you've got growing media, you've got airborne pathways, you've got the surrounding environments such as gardens, fields, woodland, garden centres, anything that's next to the actual nursery site. And you've got goods in and out, and you've got so you've got people coming in and out, you've got contractors, you've got volunteers, you've got people that want to buy the trees, you've got staff, you've got all of these pathways coming in and off the site. So taking a visual and drawing out a picture of your nursery quite often helps you in terms of producing your risk assessment and assessing the risks that are relevant for you. So you look at potential pathways and then you form a risk assessment. So I've just put this on here. I know you can't read it, but there'll be a link to the Plant Healthy website, which gives you all of the templates that you can use to help you. Even if you don't want to become certified, it can help you manage risk on your site. So this is a template for a risk assessment, and it's looking at the pathways as we've just discussed. So site boundaries, wider environment, plants, any type of plants, people, media, water, waste, packaging, products, tools, etc., etc. And it gives you examples of what you might do to mitigate that risk. You would have to adapt that to what you actually do. And I'm sure most of you are doing way more than is on this template to reduce your risk. You just might not have formulated it or recorded it or written down. Procedures and record keeping. I know it's quite tedious, but it's really useful. Procedures are useful so everyone knows what to do and they're all doing it in the same way. So they're all following the guidelines, your guidelines that you've set to reduce risk on your nursery. So procedures, even though sometimes it's a difficult thing to write, once you've done it, you've got that in place, and it's like a Bible that you can use to produce your training materials, your induction materials, etc., etc. Records, there are legal requirements for records, but it helps being with consistency, it helps with traceability, and it helps you review what you're doing to make improvements on your nursery. So I've listed a few resources on the right hand side where you can get a lot of information about biosecurity. So we've got Clyza Goodwig, who I also work for, Woodland Trust, Plant Healthy. There's guidance and best practice documents out there. Forest Research have so many really useful documents that you could use with respect to pest disease. They also have maps where current diseases are at the moment. So they have regular updated maps so you can track what's close to you with respect to things like Phytophthora. Plant health inspectors, they're another useful contact, etc., etc. The main issues that we found that community tree nurseries have, though, is capacity in terms of time and people, experience of the people, and the knowledge. So these are just 3 examples, and I'm throwing this out here for questions later. What else? How else can people help? What's needed to help you as community tree nursery managers and owners? What help do you need to make your nurseries more biosecure? And I think that is it.
Thank you very much, Amanda, for a very comprehensive overview. That's wonderful. And as she said, there are some links already in the chat for most of those resources, and I will be sending over the other ones as well. Just to let you know, there is now a downloadable spreadsheet on the Fellowship of the Trees website under the Growing Diversity project page, which also links a number of really good best practice resources on there, which you can view and download directly from that webpage. So our next 2 speakers are from Bolghen Community Tree Nursery in Cornwall, who, as Amanda said, have been part of the first group Plant Healthy scheme. So I'll introduce Jessica first. She is the project coordinator for Bolghen, and she has 25 years experience of working in projects including international aid work, and she's passionate about community environment and how to bring the 2 together. Welcome, Jess.
Hello there. Thank you, Hilary, and thanks, Amanda. Yeah, Adam and myself are from Bolghen Community Tree Nursery. We grow trees from seed, and we grow native broadleaf from seed. And the reason we do that is, obviously, most of you will know that seeds are hardwired to withstand the environment they're created in, and we grow native broadleaf because it supports British wildlife, which is in critical decline. We half of what we do is about the community, and half of what we do is about the environment, and it's very much about how to bring those two together. We are situated on a net zero farm down in St Austell in Cornwall. St Austell has it was a very deprived area, so we have a lot of need in and around us in the community, and we work with vulnerable groups. We work people who are on probation, people who are homeless, people who are suffering from ill mental or physical health, unemployment, all sorts of different issues that they're dealing with, and we offer meaningful volunteering opportunities for them to come and get involved and have that access to nature and all the healing benefits that it holds, and to learn about how to grow from seed, and about biosecurity, and about all of those different things that a community tree nursery has to offer. So we were asked if we'd like to join the pilot scheme through, we were sort of funded through various means, but mainly through the Woodland Trust and Forestry Cornwall. And so with Cornwall Council, who have got the Forestry Cornwall within them, they sort of pointed us in the right direction and linked us up. And so through that, we were actually asked to become part of this pilot. And Adam, who's our horticulturalist, joined us sort of halfway through this process. So really, Adam's going to talk about the different documents and all of that stuff and what that kind of means. And all I would say is really the beginnings of the pilot process, you know, it looked quite a little bit sort of daunting at the time. But what happened, we were brought in as part of a group scheme with one nursery, being More Trees, was the group leader. And that was being sort of the trainer almost. So they would come down and do the audit. Now, Amanda came down and did our audit and was shadowed by Dave, who then did all the other audits in our group. And the idea is that we all learn off each other, and we all try and help each other in the group, all try and get through this accreditation. And I would say from our experience, if you have the opportunity to join a group scheme, I would absolutely wholeheartedly jump for it, because that support is invaluable. And the documents that we were given as the templates made what looked quite a sort of daunting process. It made it so much simpler, because as Amanda said, you're doing it all anyway. And if the templates which have now been created, you just have to fill those out. So a lot of that thinking has been done, and you can document what you are actually already doing and keep it on file and just keep updating, and it really does kind of get it into your head. So if you're not already part of a group scheme, then I'm not sure if you can get in touch with your local authorities or with Amanda to try and get on one or actually start one is my advice. And I'll pass over to Adam now, who will kind of take you through in a bit more detail what we had to do to actually get that accreditation. Adam, over to you. I think you're on mute.
Mute. There we go. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, that's good. Okay, yeah, my name's Adam. I've been working at Bolghen Tree Nurseries since October. Prior to that, I was studying at the Eden Project up until I did a degree there up until June 23. So when it was October, it was the seed collection, and I had to learn very quickly about some of the processes that we have to do in regards to plant being biosecure, and also kind of find my own way how I can get through this with all the information that we need to get through a plant healthy audit. So I'm just going to share my screen. Okay, can you see that?
Not yet.
Yeah, is that there? Right, okay.
No.
So
we can't.
I'm sharing my screen, and do I need to do it on there? Okay, share screen, share. There we go.
There we go.
Okay.
Cool.
And slideshow. Hold on, it's blocking me. Right, can you see this?
Yes. Awesome.
Right, okay. So yeah, so this is some slides about a journey into plant health management standards. And I'm specifically going to focus on what we did when planning the seed collection, what we had to do to FRM our collections, like forest reproductive materials, processing our seeds, and how I developed like a data sheet so we could have an efficient form of seed cataloguing. So first off, when I was having to plan a seed collection, there was a bunch of things that we needed to consider. So we had to first obtain informed consent from the landowner. So we had to get their permission. So yeah, I guess you find a piece of land, you find someone who wants you to collect seed from their land. If they've got trees. I mean, we was getting some of our seeds from Southwest Water, so we had a kind of a discussion with them guys, and they said that there's certain sites that we can go to collect our seeds. And it does help to go to the site, scope out the site, and see what they've got. You might be able to look online as well. You know, you might be able to use Google Maps or something like that, or photographs, or from talking to them. And it's also good to go to the site to check the health of the plants that are there. And also, you could probably see that map on the right-hand side, the UK map. I got that from forestresearch.gov.uk, and that provides information about some outbreak areas. So that's a map of Phytophthora in the UK. So I don't know what I would do if I was in a red spot. Panic maybe, I'm not sure, but we wasn't in a red spot, so it's good to kind of do that information gathering before you go to site. And then also before we go to the site, the forestry reproductive materials want you to contact them 2 weeks before a collection, so you have to go through your online registration before you go to the site. And also you can check your site and operations pest risk analysis, which you would have done for your plant healthy audit prior to long time prior to that, and then you can see if there's any things that you need to go through. So you can see the bar at the bottom where it says seeds. This is in very small writing, but that kind of gives us some guidelines about what we're going to do when we get to site. It says seeds will be either sourced from a pathogen-free area or treated in a way which is known to eliminate the risk, and you got landowner's permission. So that's just some guidelines that are written into your SOPRA document. So now I'm thinking to myself, how am I going to record all this information? So I developed like a kind of data collection sheet, which I've laid out like this. So I've got on there everything I'm going to do with that seed from kind of almost from start to finish. So I've got like a date I'm going to collect it, the name of the collector, the location that could have the address in it. You want a grid reference which you're going to need for when you're registering your seeds. I've got like details about the species. I mean, some interesting, like you can record the growth forms if you want to. I'm not sure if that's going to be useful yet, but like I just like to collect a lot of data. I like to think I'm collecting from many different specimens, so I'm going to record how many specimens I'm going to collect from. And then on the bottom of that first sheet, I've got some FRM information that I can fill in. So when I go online to register this stuff, I can tick that I've FRM'd it. I can put down the start date and finish date of my collection. You know, that could be a month or two. You could be collecting, you can register your dates over a long period of time. So you don't need to do this every time. You don't need to register every time you go to site. You can just do it once and put a broad range date in there. And then like on the next page, I'll get to that in a little while, but I've used that next page to record how many seeds I've collected and what I'm doing with the seeds. So this is in our plant healthy audit sheet, which was given to us by More Trees, which we've adapted for Bolghen Tree Nursery. I've just focused on there, like forest reproductive materials. It's got like some of the guidelines in there. The audit supplier is registered with the Forestry Commission. That's the FRM. Master certificates are available for all FRM collections, which is something I've not actually got round to doing yet. It's been a very busy time, but that's going to be something that I have to learn. But yeah, that's just an example of the document that you might have. Yeah. So this is the forestry reproductive materials. All controlled species seed collections must be registered. Well, I think I made a mistake there, because it's mainly the seeds that you have to register are controlled species. So certain species of UK natives, such as alder or oak, might be they might need to be registered, but some seeds like hawthorns and blackthorns don't need to be registered, because some are kind of a controlled species. Yeah, so again, you have to do all this 14 days before your collection, and you need to do that with the controlled species. Like, if you don't do this, then when it comes around to you getting plant passports, you won't be able to get a plant passport without having done all these steps. So your initial FRM, and then your master seed certificate, and then you can get your plant passport, and then you're able to sell those seeds and again, as I was showing you with that previous form that I made, I'm just keeping track of what I've registered. I'm writing it all down, and eventually that's going to be digitized. When you go onto the FRM website and register your seed collection, you put in the address, you put in the species of your plant, the year it was collected, the date it was collected, when the seed collection started, when the seed collection ended. Then you've got like a grid reference number on there, which you've got off your phone with your grid reference finder or whatever. You've got the name of the collector and then a phone number. And when you submit that, then that goes into the Forestry Reproductive Materials website, and you can later look at your huge list of plants that you've registered. So now you can go out and do a seed collection. So it's good to ask a ranger or landowner if there's, obviously if you use the site, also you can ask them if there's any diseases on site. It's also really useful. Sometimes in some woodlands that you might see signs where they say, like, don't take any wood out of this forest because there's Phytophthora ramorum being found in this forest. So you can also look for those kind of things. But also when you're looking at plants, you can do a visual inspection of the plants. Is there any dieback on the plants? Is there like any, like if you're collecting seeds from a tree and it looks like in bad condition, think twice about collecting from that tree. Obviously identify your tree species that you're gathering from, and like when you're putting your seeds into bags, think about bags that are not gonna build up moisture. They can breathe, so there's like kind of there's going to be all sorts of funguses and things growing on these seeds and stuff like that. So you want to just sort of eliminate the risks of things being able to build up, when you go out of your like group or volunteers, you can have a biosecurity talk. So they have an idea of what to look for as well. And we've also got a box that we take with us, which is it's like a mobile boot wash that we can wash our boots, and we can do that with all the volunteers, and we can do that before and after we go for a seed collection. So when we go back to the site, we're going to process our seeds. We might do a float test to remove all the non-viable seeds, ones that are floating or ones that look diseased. Sometimes you can squeeze them and they just disintegrate because they're moldy or something like that. So we just want to get rid of all that stuff. And then because we're trying to collect all this data for our FRM and a master seed certificates, you know, they're going to want to know like how much weight of seeds that you collected, and that so yeah, you'll be counting your seeds, you're weighing them before and after, and removing all the extra plant material, all the leaves, you know, removing all that stuff and composting it, or putting it in your burn pile, whatever, you know. I mean, I've sometimes also resorted to, when I've got a finished batch of seeds, like using some like hydrogen peroxide on it, just to maybe kill any pathogens that might be growing on it, or if I do see there's some disease stuff, you know, that I might just remove that as well. And yeah, just recording everything. This has just been my goal, to like just make sure I've got as many numbers as possible. And then eventually you're putting your processed seeds into storage, and I would consider, what are you keeping your seeds in? I've used compost mixtures and coir, and I've seen mold growing on compost mixtures when they're in the fridge, and coir has been very good for doesn't seem to it doesn't seem to allow pathogens to grow in it while it's in the fridge. So yeah, seed storage. So a lot of our seeds get stratified in the fridge. You can see a kind of picture of the fridge there on the right hand side. And we like monitor the temperature of the fridge. It's 4 degrees, 3 degrees, 5 degrees, something like that, floats around that. And I keep close eye on that. And we do inspections of the bags. We go through all the bags. They can all breathe a little bit. There's enough moisture in them. If they do show any signs of a disease, we treat them in some way. We take them out, and we might do the hydrogen peroxide thing, or get thrown out if they need to. So yeah, monitoring regularly. And if you do find any pests and diseases growing on anything, we've got a record. So if they're in a tree house, like you can see on the picture on the left hand side, if they've got powdery mildew or something like that, that all needs to be recorded. And then if you make a treatment for it, you also need to record that as well. So yeah, I would just say that it's really important to keep up to date with all your data collection. Really keep on top of it. Like I use the A4 form that you can see on the left hand side to record everything that I do on the back of the sheet. Let me see if there's another one. Yes, you see on the back of the sheet, I've got a stratifying technique detail. I've got a stratifying timetable, and in that action to be taken, I write in there anything I do to the seed. If I take it out the fridge, I record that. I record the date. I record what I've done to it. Everything. I just make sure I've got notes of all this stuff, because it might be really useful later. And also, like, keeping on that sheet, what's the location of that seed? You know, you can go into your folder with all these sheets in. You can look up the seed. You know exactly where it is. You're always going to be able to find what you're looking for using that. And date all your interaction with the seed, yeah, which I've just told you on the back of the sheet. So yeah, keeping notes, and then digitizing everything is also something that's really important. And I think that's one of the requirements for plant healthies to have a digitized version of everything that you do. So yes, I use that A4 sheet to then fill out my online forms. And that's the end of my talk.
Thank you very much, both of you, both Jessica and Adam, for that wonderful overview, and from your own personal experiences, really useful. We can go to questions now. So there was one from Rachel, which I think has been answered by Gemma, I think, about the 14 days minimum. Has anyone else got any questions at all for any of the panelists? There's one from Alex here. Did you want to read that out, Alex?
Yeah, certainly. So I was just kind of wondering, so we currently collect seed from, say, a local country park, and we've acquired permission beforehand, and we will kind of stratify those seeds how we need to and put them in pots. And then when those seeds, say it's sessile oak, is growing in that pot, we're aware that it's sessile oak from this site collected in this year. But at a certain point, those seeds grow into seedlings and grow into saplings, and then they kind of go into our raised bed. And at that point, we tend to lose the specificity of where those plants have come from. Do you continue to, and I guess this is more a question for Bolghen Community Tree Nursery, do you continue to monitor with your saplings, say your sessile oak, exactly what year that was collected and from where, all the way through until the point where it leaves the tree nursery? Does that not end up with lots of complicated labels? Is that the route you need to go, or?
Yeah, everything is labelled. Every like root trainer that we've got has got a label in it. It's got the location written on. We've made up a code. So Hazel from Collegewood Farm would be like something like HAZ, Collegewood Farm CWF 22. That's the year, and then I can always go to that tree, that group of trees, and then I can refer back to all my digitized information or my folder of what I've made. So yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Can I come in? Can I come in there as well, Alex? You could basically, when you collect your seed, just allocate it a specific number and put the label on it or on the batch, and then just move that label with the plant so that the batch number, the number for that tree, follows it all the way through its life. It's quite important because you never know what the unknown is, and you might have something that's had an implication on the seed that doesn't show itself because we don't know until it's planted in the woodland. And then if it's planted in the woodland, you want to know who else has had that seed. So it's really, traceability is really quite key, and allocating it, as Adam was saying, with a specific batch code, and letting that follow through is a really useful way of doing that. And it's easy. It's a simple way of doing it.
Okay. We haven't been doing that to that degree up to this point. We're not part of the plant healthy accreditation yet, but it's on my job this year to kind of look into this process and sign us up for it. Obviously, all of the stock that we've currently got won't have this level of accreditation, and all future stock will. So I guess we just need to kind of start with our seed collection this year and start that process, and just kind of almost acknowledge that it will take several years before all of the stock has that level. Is Plant Healthy kind of amenable to that in a sense? So when we go for Plant Healthy accreditation, not all of our stock is going to be at that level.
Absolutely. I mean, we've audited botanical gardens that have got over 40,000 plants on site. And obviously some of those have been there for decades and they might not have the exact location. But the idea is just to, it's like a continual improvement. So you start off with the baseline, you adhere to the principles, and you just work on it and work on it and work on it. And eventually everything has traceability. So there's no worry about where you are, where you start from. The starting point is understanding of the requirements and meeting them as best you can.
Okay, thank you very much. I think I've got my thing I'll be doing for spring and summer.
Thank you for that question. There's a question from Darren. Did you want to read the question out, or would you like me to do that? No, if Darren's still here, but he's asked if what do you use to clean any collection tools?
We've been using Vikram.
There's also a lot of nurseries use Hortiset, Jet 5, Clean Kill, Propeller. So there's a broad range of disinfectants you can use.
Thank you. Any more questions at all? Tony, do you like to?
Hi, yeah, I'm just wondering how you manage involving local community groups and the biosecurity bit. How is that difficult to manage?
It might be good for Jess.
Yes. Have I unmuted myself? Yeah. Yes, I mean, it can be, once you get, as you said, once you have your processes and procedures, you just follow them. So we have our boot wash as you enter. We've got our mobile boot wash for when we go out into the forests. When we had during our audit from Amanda, she actually said another thing that you could do is get them to, you know, ring them prior and say, right, we're going to meet at this forest, make sure you come with clean boots, you know, so get rather than rely on your little mobile pots, you know, get them, you know, so at every stage, and this was another kind of another improvement that we're going to do as well, is actually at every stage, even the sort of the beginnings of the conversation with that community group, you know, have all of this stuff on our PR and marketing material on the website, getting that message across about biosecurity, about washing boots and things like that to as many different people as possible is going to reduce the overall risk of that spreading. So anywhere you can introduce that message, then do so. But community groups are so, you know, we've never had a problem with them. You know, we don't ask a lot, we don't ask them to do a lot. We just say but whatever we ask them to do, they've always complied wholeheartedly. So it's just a case of asking them to do it, and they'll do it, usually, in our experience anyway.
You can get all sorts of stuff from the Forestry Commission as well, from their Keep It Clean campaign. So you can download posters and things, and people are much more aware now of health from the point of view of COVID. They understand how it's easy to pass things on and why it's important to keep clean. So it actually makes it easier for us to help communities and people and volunteers understand why they should keep clean and stop pest and disease from moving from from woodland to woodland. And as I said to Jessica when we went, community tree nurseries are the best place ever to promote biosecurity in our woodlands and help protect our landscapes, because the volunteers, the children, the communities all spread that word through their friends and family as well. So we're going to get more and more people that are aware of biosecurity risks and what they should do. And it's simple, it's just keeping it clean.
Good point, that. Yeah. We've got a question from Chris. Would you like to ask that, Chris?
Yeah, I will, thanks. Yeah, are any of the chemicals used in biosecurity organic? Because we're an organic tree nursery.
No.
None?
None. However,
what do we do then?
Well, this is a difficult one. The best thing to do is to tell people, as Jessica said, to come with clean boots. So if you've got people that work regularly on the nursery, you could have them leave their work boots on site and change when they get there, or they could wash their boots at home. I have some boots that I just soak and wash, and some that I can put through the washing machine to get them clean. So it's really difficult when you are trying to be organic and try to be chemical free, but it's not impossible. So it's managing the risks slightly differently by preempting people coming with dirty boots by explaining that you're not going to use chemicals and what you want them to do is to come with clean boots. And some people as well, for visitors, have these little over socks that they can put over people's boots that haven't come with clean boots, that maybe have just come to look at the nursery or for a visit, and you haven't had the opportunity to tell them to come with clean boots. You can get these little plastic like surgeons wear, you know, the
Yeah, I know.
ones they put over their shoes. So you could get some of those just to keep as an emergency standby if you need them. But I understand what you're saying, and everybody wants to reduce the amount of chemicals used anyway, so it's not impossible. And chemicals are not the be all and end all. Spores from Phytophthora can still stick to your boots or to wheels, regardless of how much you walk through a foot bath or scrub with a brush. You still have a chance of that pest and disease coming. So all you can do is try your best, and keeping it clean is probably even better than standing on a chemical mat, because if you're keeping them clean at home, you're getting more of the mud and dirt off.
Thanks.
Thank you, Chris. We've got time for, I think, one or two more questions. There's one from Darren asking if any of your stock been affected by pests or diseases. If so, how have you managed this, and what's the best way to manage it?
So I started in October, so we're kind of coming to the end of the the trees growing year, and but there was a lot of powdery mildew and black sooty mold, which is quite normal really for trees like in the local area. You notice it growing on the local trees, but when they was in the cages and the trees are very condensed and close together, it was kind of thinking, yeah, maybe there's too much trees in a small space, so making space for the trees to be able to breathe. But we physically took every tree out of the root, not out of the root trainers, but we took the root trainers into another place. We cleaned all the leaves. It was like soapy water for for taking off the powdery mildew. It stops them from photosynthesizing. So, but yeah, we'll be looking into other ways next year for if we do spot it. I mean, I've reduced down the amount of trees in that space by 10%, and I'm going to monitor it. So I've taken an action. So it might allow for more air to breathe. I did notice that the powdery mildew was only growing on the trees in the top of the tree house, whereas the ones on the bottom. So that powdery mildew must need some sunlight, or the yeah, something like that. You notice these things, and you try to find a way to mitigate it or remove it. Yeah.
Also, if you're not sure what it is, and you've got a local plant health inspector you've already engaged with, they're the best person to ask to come and have a look, or you can take photographs and send them across to Tree Alert or Observatory if you're worried. It's not ideal to move if you really suspect something serious. It's not ideal to move it, because you can easily spread what it is across the nursery. It's better to move the other things from by it, but keep them again apart from other plants. So you could have like a quarantine area if you can move it, but it's not really ideal to move them about, because you might be moving the disease or the pest across the nursery site. So take advice when you can from your plant health inspector, or send samples away, or send photographs away if you think it's something more serious than something that can be managed, as Adam was discussing, by a change in practice on the nursery.
Thank you. I think we're just about out of time now, so thanks for all your questions there. We'll send a copy of the chat through in a follow-up email. Thank you very much to all our guest speakers. Amanda, Jessica and Adam, it's been really wonderful to have you here this evening. And thank you to everyone who's come along this evening. Hope you can share the knowledge with other people that are interested. There will be a recording available on our YouTube channel soon, and also on the Growing Diversity webpage. And I'll be in touch, as I say, with useful resources and other information very soon. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.